Welcome, everybody, to the ASC live stream. My name is Adam, the Valentine Jewel, and I'm just making stuff up. And with us, as always, is horrible Babe Hyde. How are you doing, babe?
Horribly.
And coming in at 8'9", the mouth of the South, Brendon, the Tickler Traxler. Brendon, how are you doing?
Weird.
Yeah, I know. Nothing on the 8'9" part, huh?
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right. How you guys doing?
All right, how are you?
Good.
It's been wonderful. Did you guys have a good, nice, long Memorial weekend?
That worked.
Well, Babe says yes.
Yes.
Did you do anything? It poured down rain like all weekend long, so it's like even if I was off there, but like nothing to do because just a torrential downfall.
Oh, I didn't tell you before the show started, but my mom asked about you. She's like, "How's Brendon doing? I know he's down there by a lot of those storms. Is he all right?" And I'm like,
Yeah, well, that's sweet of her.
he still talks to me, so he's must be doing all right.
Yeah, well.
Anywho, what are we doing today, Brendon? You were kind of talking about how it coincided with some other going on.
Yeah,
today.
good segue there. Yeah, so just if anybody follows space, literally like an hour ago, SpaceX launched the Starship, and it's one of those things where you never know if it's going to launch or not, but it did. And so when I came up with the idea for this, I didn't realize it was happening today. So it's just a nice little quinkadink there that this happened. But a lot of this conversation that we're going to talk about, basically what we're talking about it's something we've discussed quite a few times on here is the space versus ocean type of thing, the exploration of it, so that's basically what we're going to be getting into today. And I know that you both have views on this, and we'll get into that. But a quick plug here for all that too is, if anybody follows the Colonize the Ocean podcast, which is the podcast spin-off of ASC under the ASC umbrella, there we go. Babe's got the mug right there. The short this week was my hot take on space. And so that was really exciting. It kind of was the precursor of what we're talking about here. And then there's the AI, every Friday there's an AI podcast that comes out for people who want a little bit different format there, but it's going to be about this as well. Basically how it works is I take a bunch of different articles, I throw it in, it produces an AI podcast based off of that information. So you're getting a threefold this week because you get the short, you get tonight's, and then you'll get the AI then on Friday. So that's what we're talking about is space exploration a waste of space, as the title implies. And did any of you want to chime in there first before we started getting into some facts and other information, and through your, because you guys don't see my notes, you don't know what I'm talking about before we get down here, except for the general idea of it.
I listened to the short.
Okay.
And
so you kind of had an idea where I'm going with it then too.
Yeah. So I did have some difference of opinion. So yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm liking that. Adam, did you listen to the podcast?
Nope.
Well, okay then. So the reason this came up is we were having a discussion the other day. I think was it just you and me, Adam? I don't remember. Anyway, I was talking about one of the content creators out there in the realm, and he's called the Angry Astronaut.
No, you were talking with Babe about this, not me.
Yep.
It was in the group chat though.
Yeah. And so his whole thing is he's just. And like when I first started watching him, because there's several out there I watch, the Everyday Astronaut, which is Tim Dodd, he's like the main guy for all this. There's the Launch Pad. There's like one or two that you watch as well, Adam, that cover like space launches and stuff like that. So there's all these entities out there that are making careers off of this, and it's like, again, why doesn't ocean have this? And I mean, there's multiple reasons why, but it's one of those things where I feel it needs to change. But anyway, the Angry Astronaut, his whole thing is he's just middle-aged dude that wears sunglasses, holds a microphone, and yells at the camera about stay angry about space and stuff like that. And you got to check him out. But anyway, when I first started watching, I'm like, who watches this guy? But here I am watching every one of his shows and stuff like that. He's kind of pivoted now to more like UFOs and stuff like that over the years. But the fact still remains, So that I said maybe I should start doing the angry aquanaut instead of the angry astronaut, kind of a spin-off thing, but covering basically the same thing. Anyway, so that started this whole conversation here about what we're talking about, and got me looking back into it and really thinking about. I feel like I have been, because we all grow up. I think a lot of us grew up wanting to be astronauts or loving the space thing like that. It holds a place in our hearts, and so maybe I've been a little bit too kind to the space industry. And my hot take, I guess, like from the short was, I think we're wasting. It's a waste of time and money at this point in time to keep on funneling money into the space industry. And so that is the precursor to everything we're going to talk about a little bit better. That's where I'm at. So I didn't know if you, babe, if you wanted to wait until I play my argument out, or if you wanted to jump in there and try to.
Oh no, play it out. Let's go. Let's see. Yeah, let's just go.
Adam, are you just along for the ride, or you got anything to throw in there first?
I'll interrupt you if I have anything that I want to interrupt you with.
Fair enough.
I want to hear your thoughts here.
So basically, I looked at what's the pros and cons of all of them. Also, I was looking at so in a business world, what's the ROI on it? What's your return on investment on space industry versus ocean exploration, stuff like this. So I did a lot of research on trying to figure out, what all these things were. So pros and cons. I mean, I think most of the pros and cons we kind of know just by if you know anything about those industries, whatever. The biggest one for space, and which is hard to even when you're looking at the ROI too, is put into any kind of figure, is the knowledge aspect of it. We have gained so much insight and knowledge just into our universe, where we potentially came from, what's out there. Adam and I have had discussions, which he hates, about the size of the universe and just spanning out and just seeing everything's out there. And I mean, 100 years ago, we had limited, even 100 years ago, we had limited ideas about all this stuff. And so, I mean, we've got this awe that comes with the space exploration out there. So that's a big one. Plus, we have gotten technologies that without those, we would not be sitting here doing what we're doing right now. I mean, without GPS and satellites and, which gives us internet, commercial, even some medical stuff. And the fact that we've been able to get some technologies brought down into a more scale format because, we had to make them work in space is the necessity of the fact we were able to get technologies down smaller. So those are, and like I say, and the inspiration aspect, which I talked about before. So those are a bunch of the really good pros for why the space industry is worth it and why it's a good thing. Con-wise, the cost is a huge one for it. I mean, on my list here, I got cons, and then I even have more cons that I took personally, which I'll talk about later. But just the amount of money that gets put into it, not only from the government, but from private industries too, which I personally don't have as big of an issue if a private industry wants to funnel billions and billions of dollars into it. But when taxpayer dollars or something along those lines are going towards it, that's where I start to take a little more offense to it when there's a disparity in what ocean is getting as well. So that's why it's more of a con for me. And then obviously the risks associated with space. Now there's risks in both, but I think there's the potential for more risk with it because there's still so much we don't know about space. We've got radiation aspects. We've got the microgravity standpoint, the psychological standpoints of the isolation. All these things come into play. And even though we've studied a lot, we're still learning as we go and still trying to figure it out, which could be very detrimental to the future of space exploration if it comes out that, hey, this isn't, long-term type of thing. And also the fact that it's not something that just anybody can get into. Like scuba, pretty much anybody can scuba and go explore the oceans. You can go do an internship with coral restoration, do stuff like those lines, and get involved with it. But with space, there's a huge barrier to it because you can't just go to space and do experimentation and stuff along those lines. Even though, people like, Bezos and Musk and Branson are trying to bring those costs down so people can do that. Right now, it's still not. And then obviously with everything, you start to look at the ethical and the economic impact of anything that we do, whether it's space or in the ocean. Space, the concern is, hey, like we've heard here with the thing is, stay out of the water. We've already ruined it. Same thing. You're going to another planet, or you're going to trash it up, ruin it, type of thing like that, etc. So those are the kind of the pros and the cons for the space side. Do you have any rebuttals against that, babe? Since you think you got all the answers here tonight.
Rebuttals? I don't know about rebuttals. I believe in the bigger picture, a longer term for it. So as far as ROI, for me, the idea of space is one of the things, whether it's been science fiction or people talking about, just like they talk about undersea mining, is the future of space is to be able to get resources from space, the asteroids and stuff they've already looking at that, because what was that camera they landed on or something, they landed on those asteroids. So yeah, I think it's a long-term ROI as opposed to that. And in theory, if you start getting your resources from there, then you're not invading your own home and messing it up. So when it comes to the green thing, that looks better as far as and I actually agree with that, because if we can take down a few asteroids and get those resources, then heck yeah.
And that, actually, I haven't even gotten to the ROI aspect, and I actually addressed that in there. So
did you?
Yeah. So, and I've got some numbers on that too.
And of course,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, number-wise, right now it's going to look horrible.
Yeah. Because
it's going to be astronomical, the cost. But if you keep working, keep chipping away at it,
right.
then eventually ideally, it should become more of a balance.
Yeah. I mean, I see that. I see that.
Sorry.
Anyway, we'll get to that. I'll jump into the pros and cons of the ocean then next, and so then we can really have some apples to apples here. But one of the pros to the ocean is the to the space is that it's right here, so the barrier to entry is very affordable, because you can literally walk into your backyard, get in the water, and do these things like I was just talking. So there's that huge impact that it's a whole lot easier to get into and do, which therefore does have a cost, because it's obviously cheaper as well. Also, we know that it is a teeming hotspot of biodiversity, where so far space is not that at all, that we've been able to so far get to. Well, Adam, I see your expression over there. We'll get to that, or you can get to that. But I don't have these in my notes, but I was just watching a video the other day, and they're talking about what was it? Is it the humpback whale? I think that feeds on giant squid.
Sperm.
Sperm. It feeds on giant squid, and how many sperm whales they believe are out there, and how many giant squid they have to eat, which means how many thousands and thousands and thousands of giant squid are out there in the water. And it wasn't until 10, 20 years ago we had never even seen one.
Yeah.
So it's like, what the heck is out there in the ocean that we have zero idea? My niece still swears that she believes the Meg is alive out there. I said it's not, but go prove me wrong. But anyway, it's stuff like that. What it could be out there that we just have no concept of. So it is an alien world that we just know nothing about. So there is that biodiversal background that we've got. And as you're talking about space, the ocean is a potential for mining, for food, for medicinal stuff like that. All these type of things that we are realizing is down there, and there's tons of untapped real estate to experiment on these things and look at these pros or cons in that standpoint there. And then, because it is closer to us and that's easier to get to, the possibility for advances in technology may come quicker and be more cost effective, because we're able to, again, lesser barrier of entry, be able to get in there and do stuff with them. So, and then, on the socioeconomic aspect of the whole thing, you're able to involve schools or communities and stuff along those lines, and really partner people around there and communities around there to benefit your environment and something more tangible that you can see on a day in, day out basis. So those are a bunch of the pros that I was able to find for the oceans. Likewise, cons wise, and this one is a weird one. The one con I have listed here is underfunding, and that's a con because you can't get as much done, I think, is more than anything. And then all these things, it seems to spur from the fact that there isn't as much funding for it because you've got the limitations of technology, because it is an alien world, and because the pressures and the inhospitable, whatever that word is, inhospitable world that it is. You can't just easily go there, at least at depths, to really get in there. And then, even though mining could be a possibility, also it's a huge risk to the environment. So this benefit that was a pro is now a con, type of thing there. And like I said, because of the risks, because of we don't know a lot about it, there's a huge safety concern out there too, which we saw from the Titan sub a few years ago, where it was whether he was wrong or right, which everything points to him being wrong. Still, he's pushing the boundaries on technology, and it cost 5 people their lives in this world. And also, obviously, there has been life lost and stuff like that in space as well. But it's a little bit more one and done type of thing, underwater, where there is very little error there. Where in space, we've seen where stuff goes wrong, there's backups, and they might be able to do things. Boeing here recently, there's always issues there. You're able to dock them, get them back down, even though it took a while. That probably wouldn't be the same situation underwater, at least in the current state, because of just what we're dealing with. So those are kind of the pros and cons there for the ocean side of thing. And you may have some others that I missed out on there, which I'm all ears.
Adam, were you going to say something?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think that in order to have this discussion, you have to know what your goal is with it, right? So if your goal is purely exploration, there is a finite limit to what we're going to find in the ocean. There's only so much. Yeah, there's obviously a ton that is unexplored and this stuff. So eventually, yeah, you could figure it all out, but then once you figure it all out, then it's done.
Uh-oh.
But
he froze up.
Did I?
No, you're fine.
Oh. Sorry. But space, as far as we know, is infinite, right? So exploration really never ends with it. And so, once again, now if you want to have the argument about resources, obtaining resources on Earth, almost, I can't think of hardly any resource you can gather that does not have a environmental impact of some sort or another. And there's ways to counter it, sure, like cutting down trees for wood. Yeah, you can replant trees and all that. And people are finding out how to make better use of certain materials, say bamboo and whatever. So when it comes to stuff like that, mining certain types of ores and minerals and all that, is there possibilities and whatever to do that in the ocean? Sure. But is there a big consequence with it as well? Very possibly. So it all, to me, depends on what your motive is with it. To me, for a crew like this, and I can't speak for the both of you, but for the goal of, say, just having an underwater habitat, the goal is not about revolutionizing anything. It's about being able to enjoy a new atmosphere, enjoy a new ambiance, being able to have a place where you can learn and do stuff, but its purpose isn't necessarily to explore, because you wouldn't drop one somewhere where you have zero idea of what the terrain is or whatever, you know what I mean? But so yeah, I keep repeating myself, but it's it all depends on what your goal with it is with the ocean or space. Because
I think it's fair. I think it's kind of Babe's point earlier, is long term versus short term plays a lot into it as well. So yeah.
Like I have it pulled up right over here. Sorry, babe, I didn't mean to cut you, but
Okay.
like what they've been talking about a lot in the news lately is like how the Chinese are trying to figure out a way to mine, or not mine, but like harvest the helium-3 from the moon, because if they can harvest or get enough of that, that can power nuclear fusion reactors on Earth and all that without having to. And once again, cost. Like, what's it going to cost to go and retrieve all of that stuff and process it and bring it back? But does the benefit outweigh that cost? You never know. So it's like, and like you said, the asteroids that have, like they talk about, like they have certain minerals and crystals and ores that like could be huge benefits if like you're able to find a way to direct them and blow them up here safely and be able to like retain all the stuff without having to destroy the Earth. But having that available, so I will redeem my, or I will rest my case for now.
What were you gonna say, babe?
I go back to Dr. Deep Sea. Remember when he was living underwater? Because I'm sure he said it before then, but it's just, he's convinced, and I mean, I have to agree with him. Like just about any disease that we haven't mutated beyond, it's natural. Maybe I shouldn't even say it that way, but anyways, he was convinced there's cure, for just about anything, because the ocean's 2/3 of our world still, and there's so much to it. There's so much to it, and on that same note, as far as being, this is my, it's my opinion, but when it comes to people just like not wanting to mess with, space because we'll mess it up, just like that, what you were saying with the same thing with the ocean, and of course we've dealt with it directly here before, and what we're doing now up till now hasn't worked. So what, the idea, because to me the saying that Jacques Cousteau had, why can't I quote it now that I'm trying to, but they don't love it. To make them love, they have to know it or something. I just can't. It was. So the more exposure to you get to it, and what more exposure are you going to have than living in it,
right?
Temporarily or full time.
Absolutely. That's something we've been saying, for the whole time as well. Is like, until we get more and more eyes on it, it's one of those things where it's out of sight, out of mind type of thing. And if we can get people more and more eyes on it, the plan is they'll appreciate it.
And it just bothers me because they scream all that, but it's like what you're doing now isn't working. So let's try something different. You know, I'm not gonna say it's gonna work. Yeah. But as opposed to what we got now, and there's other conveniences or other pros that can go with it.
Yep. So talking about, there's been a lot of talk about the asteroids and all that kind of stuff. So let's get into dollar figures here of what's going on out there. And first off, I'll give the budgets that I could find. So global space exploration budget is $135 billion in 2024. Of that, almost $25 billion came from the U.S. So nice chunk of change. For ocean, however, ocean was a little bit harder to find because a lot of it comes from philanthropy groups and stuff along those lines, so it's not as clear. But the estimation for 2024, so space had 135 billion, ocean had 3 billion for 2024, and of that, 1 billion came from the U.S. So 1/3 of all that funding came from there. So that sets up the basis for why there's such a disparity on a bunch of stuff we talked about there. But then it goes into, when you start getting to the ROI on the whole thing, both of them is extremely hard to quantify an ROI on something this, because since such of a lot of it is knowledge-based gains as well as environmental gains and stuff on those things, which you can't really put a dollar figure on. So the best we could do is break down that. So space, they're figuring since 1960, $1 trillion has been spent on space exploration. Easy. That's why they're putting it on the ocean. they're factoring about 100 billion in that same 1960 to today. So 10 times across the board on everything, or maybe 100 times, whatever it is. It's a lot. But, from space, as we talked about earlier, we've gotten satellites and GPS and all these other things that have monetized to recoup some of that. SpaceX alone, with their Starlink satellites, have probably already broken even or are making a profit off of theirs already, and they've only been around a couple of years, and they're still expanding that outcome. And they're saying that the investment was $10 billion to get that up and running to where it's at today. And so if they've already been able to recoup $10 billion in 2 years off of that, obviously space has it. But again, they're spending, they haven't even spent $10 billion in the ocean, as far as we ever know. So it's like one of the things where, it's easy to make a nice return when you've got the money to spend it. Just like any business, if you've got the money to invest in the business, if we had $1 billion, ASC would be in a completely different place than it is right now. So it's one of those things. And for the ocean, it sees most of its revenue streams coming from things like food production or tourism. A lot of it comes from energy production, whether it's tidal or wind turbines and stuff along those lines. And then even so, like you were talking about, biotech, as far as finding cures for diseases or experimenting on stuff along those lines, there is some revenue streams that comes from those type of things. So it's got a diverse type of background of different stuff that can come from it. But yeah, does it justify? I think justifying it isn't the right way to put it, because if you look at it from solely a business standpoint, probably neither one of them make much sense. It has to be, like Adam was saying, what is the reason going into it type of thing. If it's just exploration, or if it's just to make a buck or whatever it is. So you look at it like that. It maybe looking at the ROI is the worst way to look at doing something like this, as whether it's going to make money off of it, but it's as Babe was saying, the more the long-term thing. The asteroid, I think I had that number wrote down here somewhere. But yeah, it was, maybe I didn't. But yeah, there was one company was guessing it was $700 quintillion worth of ore off the satellite. And it's like that revenue stream. It's a number we can't even fathom. And if we were able to harness that, what would that do? Obviously at that point in time, yes, all money that's been spent in space exploration has justified itself just right there off of mining those satellites. And to your point, yes, what does that do as far as saving the Earth, as far as from mining and stuff along those lines? Hopefully it would slow it down somewhat. So yeah, that's kind of the financial standpoint of there. And there was, like I say, I was hoping for more of a direct answer on putting the numbers to some sort of a tangible play there. On it makes more sense. But everything I saw was showing that even at the inflated numbers that space has over the ocean, there still seemed to be more of a return on the dollar for space than it was the ocean, even at that. So there's that. What you typing over there, Adam?
Just kind of touching back on what we were talking about with one of the motives, I think, as far as when the funding goes, because you mentioned about how much of the money is coming from, and you only mentioned came from the U.S. government. That's not to mention what other country, whether it's China, Russia, or whatever.
No, I put that in there.
Oh, well, you said U.S. contributed $25 billion for the space.
Yeah, and the whole world was $135 billion.
Okay, and that's all governments.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. Like, how much of it is governments and private?
You say both space and ocean were hard because of that, but most of it comes from private companies. None of it is coming from like nonprofits and stuff like that, which is the problem with ocean. So yeah, that should be including what I saw was numbers from like SpaceX and private industries, sure, which we can easily have the numbers on.
Sure, and I think the easiest answer, or the easiest reason for that, in my opinion, is the reason we don't put as much, in my opinion, put as much money and effort into anything naval research or whatever is because the power players, especially the United States, already dominate the seas as far as when it comes to weaponry. And weaponry dominates any type of research, really, right? Like, the whole reason, like, people get into a certain field is because it's like, well, we need to know how to make this... Oh, I just knocked everything over on my computer, I'm sorry. We need to know how to weaponize or take advantage of it military-wise, right? I mean, it's the same reason they got into the space race, is because of the Cold War and trying to be like, all right, like, yeah, like, we're going to be the first to the moon or whatever, but it was a political power play. It was all about Sputnik and who can get satellites and who can monitor who and who can do this. Well, with space or whatever, there's still such an open field of being like, can we develop better satellites? Can we develop better drones and spy tech and, you know, weapons that can shut down other countries, whatever, by use of that? But it's like the maritime field or the naval field or whatever has basically been conquered as far as like what it in terms of weaponry and war. Like,
I
the world
disagree
knows
with that.
See,
Because I mean, you still, I mean, unless there's stuff out there, which there probably is. I mean, you can still spot where a submarine's at. There's still a signature on it. You still
Sure.
got speed limitations, all these different type of stuff that you have, especially underwater. On the surface, I mean, that's harder to do. But when you start getting underwater, you know, then you start getting into the game of how deep can you go and how quiet can you go and how fast can you go. And those are the big three that we're still, we believe, combating against. You know, I don't think supercavitation or anything like that is on a standard submarine at these days that we're going to be going, you know, 500 miles an hour under the water.
They're pretty impressive.
Yeah. But I get your point, but I'm saying because it's still like the Wild West, where it is fresh and it's new. So yeah, continue on.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, we've figured out enough to know what efficient trade routes are as far as like the waters go, and yeah, there's always like the discovery of like how do we make weaponry better in the water and stuff. Yeah, like you were just saying, but for the most part, we understand what we're doing on Earth, and we understand where most countries, you know, what they contribute to that big picture. You know, United States having the largest navy, but then like there's China, there's also I just pulled like commercially Greece and China have like the biggest like commercial fleets of ships and stuff, right? So, but going back to that though, it's still the Wild West when it comes to space, and we're all still trying to. Every country wants to be the one that like has the upper edge in that, and that's why they're putting so much money into that, is because it's just like, well, like we haven't even really established the rules on how you would fight in space, whereas like we kind of have those rules as far as like, oh, you can't be in these waters, you can't be in these waters, or these are commercial waters, and whatever it may be. So there's still a lot of gray area that politically people are trying to take advantage of while they can.
Fair. I mean,
And politics moves everything. The dollar moves everything.
Yeah,
So it's like if the government's not going to put money towards anything that does not give them an edge over someone else, and that's any government body. That's not me saying United States alone, but that's every country wants to have an edge on something if they're going to put money towards it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I guess you know, semi in closing type of thing, but I guess my big issue with space versus the ocean is twofold. First and foremost is I don't have a problem with the private industries doing what they're doing and funding it. They're using their own money to do it. It's when the government, if the government was 50-50, hey, 50% of our funding goes towards space, 50% of it goes towards ocean, this would be a moot point, and we would see the oceans be probably a lot further along than things are, or space would not be as far. But I think that, well, again, that's where the private industry comes in, and we're seeing that what SpaceX has done, faster than what government agencies have been able to do in decades. Even Blue Origin, even though they're not really putting people in space, even though that's what they're advertising, still they have monetized space travel and brought that price down, and it continued to bring that down as well. So, and the same thing with Richard Branson, different techniques to do this. But
there
that's
is
all
a business plan for it.
There's a business plan because they're trying to make money, but also they brought this stuff down and brought it to the everyday person, which was never, at the rate the government goes on things, it was decades away from ever happening, which now it is because of private industry.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of privatizing most things, and because of issues like this, it's better competition. There's not a monopoly where they can just do whatever. So same thing with the ocean. So that would be the one thing. If it was 50-50, cool. But my other problem is that I think that space mankind is not designed for it. The microgravity, we've already seen the atrophying of the bones and the muscles of living in microgravity that happens when people are up there for just a year. Let's go to the moon or the Mars and try to live there for a period of time. What's going to happen to the body? We still have no idea, even if you can procreate in space, in a microgravity thing. It's a question that they don't know what's going to happen when you try to procreate in space because of microgravity. And then there's radiation issues because you're not protected by the atmosphere the Earth has provided for us, or it's going to be a different thing there. Even loss of vision has been experienced by most people who spend any time in longer time in space because of, again, microgravity, how it messes with your eyes. So it's a completely genetically, we're just not designed to live there. So if for some reason we're able to work through a bunch of this stuff, which I believe technology will work through a bunch of this stuff, but it's going to get to the point where the next generation who's born on a foreign planet will not be able to come back to Earth. The bodies just won't support those gravity and stuff like that, unless they're like in a bubble or something along those lines. And of course, the psychological aspects of being that far away from civilization, I attribute that to kind of, the conquistadors and anybody who came over from, Europe. I mean, they burnt their ships and they were here. There was civilization here, though, for them to interact with. Unlike that, it'd be like, again, going out the Old West is like loading up your wagons and heading out, and it's a do or die type of thing. Both these are the scenarios that are coming into play here, even though it's still not even accurate with that because there's literally nothing out there for them to interact with. No life, no nothing once they set up shop on the moon or the Mars or wherever they may go. Fortunately, the ocean has come in to save the day on that one too, with the different projects dealing with that. The NEMO projects as space analogs, testing out the psychological aspects and just the weightless aspects of living in a habitat in a foreign location in an alien world. We've been able to experiment a little bit with that. Obviously, it's still definitely not the same because you do know in the back of your head, hey, I am 60 feet from the surface and I'm going to be safe type of thing versus, 60,000 miles or whatever it is. But so that's my big concern on, and I think that the space agencies know that this is an issue, but they can't come up and be like, hey, humans we can't do this. Humans can't do that because all their funding is going to be wiped out at that point in time if they own up to the fact that mankind can't live in space for extended periods of time. So what do you do? And without completely, genetically engineering people to live in a micro atmosphere or microgravity and stuff along those lines, you're looking at snake oil salesmen out there drumming up money, which a lot of people think Elon Musk kind of is, and I'll give it to him. I can see that a lot of times, but still, the fact is that's my concern. That's my whole thing with the whole thing is that yes, from a mining aspect, from the satellite aspect, from GPS, all these benefits we're getting from it, great. I just think there's some dishonesty going on there with it, and there's a disparity in the budgets that need to be justified and fixed. And so that's why, in my opinion, that it is a waste of space. Mic drop.
For you.
And hey, Brian, how's it going? Brian, since do you think that the space industry is a waste of our taxpayer dollars in whatever?
You're turning into a political thing
Yeah,
by saying, like,
yeah,
is it a waste of our time?
yeah.
I'm
Anyway.
Glenn Beck. No,
No, it's Alex Jones.
oh, sorry.
Anyway, so what? So that was my mic drop moment. That was what I had. That was my notes. What do you guys got? I mean, or are you safe with what your viewpoint is on that? So I know, maybe you kind of feel like, you know, yeah, long term it's worth it because of the environmental aspects and the possibilities there from that. But you got more to it than just that.
No, I mean, just science fiction has always led. So somewhere something. I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to stay happening. But I agree, the disparity should be closed between, ocean. Because again, it's 2/3 of our world. Why wouldn't you put a little more into it? But I always think of it as a podcast or something. I can't remember how long ago I listened to it, but it was a guy, I think down in Florida, that started growing some kind of algae that's used in rocket fuel. Like, they grow it in the ocean, and it's like, and it's used for fuel.
Yeah. Brian actually, he's like, he doesn't feel it's a waste, but we should explore more of the 99% of the unexplored ocean. Agreed. And I think that's, well, I think that's why we're all here, because I think we 100% realize that. And as I know you missed I think you missed the beginning of what we're talking about here, but that was a really big part of it. It is an alien world that we're just not exploring, or that we are just very slowly. Meanwhile, we know more about Mars, we know more about Moon than we do about our oceans. We've mapped it more. We have better information about all those. We have better information about most of the planets in our solar system than we do our own ocean. And I mean, that says something about just how inhospitable the ocean is to get to. But even more reason why we should be there, unless you want to put the conspiracy theory hat on and say we know what's down there and that's why we're avoiding it, which some people will say because you used to spend a bunch of money exploring and then all of a sudden it kind of like, hey, you know what, we're done. What they see down there, was it the aliens from the abyss? And they're like, hey, yeah, no.
Isn't that like a creepypasta thing where they're saying like, NASA used to spend all their time exploring the ocean until some certain date, and then they immediately switched their money they switched all their money trying to get off the planet, and it's just like, okay.
It is. Yeah, my niece has sent that one to me. I'm like, whatever. I'm like, yes, we have always invested into it. We don't do enough, but I don't think that's it.
They probably got tired of looking at certain fish, and they're like, all right, they're all fish. Like,
I've heard the same thing about the moon stuff too. Like, they never want to go back to the moon because what they found, it's like, whatever.
Well, the dark side, don't go on the dark side of the moon. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
If you want to
Pink Floyd
go with the conspiracy theories, then there is something to interact with out in space, right?
Yeah.
We could get into a whole
whole another podcast.
I just like to reiterate the fact that it's just like, once again, if your funding is coming, or like the majority funding is coming strictly from governments, right, and not from privatized industry, we're at a point where it's just like, if there's not a military advantage, like, they don't want to do it, because especially say like some unnamed country or whatever, they do discover something really cool in the ocean that like is like just invaluable, it's just like one of a kind. Well, certain governments have the military strength to maybe be like, that's ours now, like, because we invested our money in figuring out how to just take things or start fights with people to be able to take things that might not be theirs.
Let's look at the U.S. government they don't have to fund NASA. They can fund dark programs which will funnel the money over into NASA as well. So that money doesn't have to necessarily go to NASA or to NOAA or whomever. They can be even on that, and then, hey, all right, we're going to put this money through DARPA to go do whatever or something.
And I think with those numbers too, that you got to think, because you were saying like $1 billion goes into like ocean research or whatever, or programs. That's not, I can guarantee you, that's not counting what they put into the Navy and the Coast Guard, which is probably funding a bunch of projects.
Right, yeah.
Defense fund is completely
no,
different.
it's It's strictly ocean, space exploration, ocean exploration, something along those lines.
I mean, if they invest like hundreds of millions of dollars into adjusting jets to have a small tactile advantage, they're putting billions of dollars into anything, like, or in all their groups to, like I said, everything's always about the advantage of what you can get. So, and who knows, there could be, we talked about it, I think, on the last live stream we did about supercavitation, and I'm gonna murder my dogs, and that maybe there is craft out there already that does know how to do supercavitation. It's just not public yet, you know.
I mean, we know it exists. It's been existed for.
Maybe we've mastered it, and it's just
it's possible.
It's hidden right now because we don't have a reason to unleash that technology to the rest of the world until
that's 100% possibility as well.
History proves all that true.
Yeah, which we talked about last time as well. So with the USOs and stuff along those lines. So yes,
I think now would be a good time as any to like start shilling our vitamin supplements or whatever that I think most conspiracy shows.
Is my taking NADs?
This podcast is brought to you by NyQuil. No, sleep on it.
All right.
We should get some sponsors.
I'm gonna do some Afrin right here real fast on the live stream.
Next live stream, we should try to do as many like
sponsor things.
No product placements as we possibly can.
If the whole back is just product play, I'll put a shelf up with a bunch of stuff.
Like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of conflicts out there in the ocean. A lot of conflicts like the upcoming SummerSlam WWE. You know?
Gosh. Yeah.
The official sponsor of ASC.
That would be so awesome. Anyway, called Steve Austin on here being like, well, I love boats. No, I'm kidding.
Close it out.
All right, guys, we're closing out. Well, I mean, we have some updates here. Brendon told me about the AtlantaSeaColony.com website. It's currently under construction. It's
up and running. It's just like
it's up, but it's stripped of a lot of information right now because this man cannot be happy with any website he develops. Like, as soon as he releases version 37, he's already thinking about 39. Like, this guy,
you gotta be moving forward.
Leave the website alone next time, okay?
Yeah.
Anyways, when it's reconstructed or whatever, that's where you can find all of our information as far as finding us on the social medias. That's Facebook.
It's all there. Social medias are all ready.
Okay, sorry. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and all the other one. X, sorry. Brain's fuzzing out right now. Join us on those. Follow us on those. That's where you can interact with us a lot, too, on those pages. Like, leave some comments. We might comment back. As long as they're nice. No, I'm kidding.
I'll comment back.
He'll comment. No. Also, 1ATMLiving.com. Brendon,
I forgot
tell us about 1ATM Living. That's a nice coffee mug you got there.
Yeah, so just like we have Colonize the Ocean podcast, which I think we'll talk about here in a second, which is the audio, the podcast spin-off for ASC. You know, and the website, we do have merchandise for ASC as well. One ATM Living, One Atmosphere Living is more the lifestyle brand for ASC that I'm trying out there. You know, just some regular merchandise that's not necessarily underwater habitat themed, and so it speaks to a broader audience of just divers or people who love the ocean and stuff along those lines. So that's kind of the focus on that.
Yeah, on the real world, you have like the hunters and the ranchers that really like Carhartt products, and that's their lifestyle. And then like you have I don't know, like people that are into sports like to have their jerseys and their fan wear and stuff. And then you like swingers like pineapples. But then we have One Atmosphere Living, 1ATMLiving.com. That's our lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you like how I slid that in there?
Yeah.
All right. Colonize the Ocean podcast. It's on all major platforms. As far as we know, we haven't been told of any that it's not on. I have a few different ones because of how I subscribe to certain shows.
It's all on there. It's on YouTube podcast now as well. And so, yeah, and we've actually been getting comments from the YouTube podcast as well. So
the big thing is like, I would say 80% of people either use like Amazon Music or Spotify. It's on there.
Yeah.
And, and then, like I said, I know there's a bunch of other players. Like, I use one called Castbox. It's on there, too. That one's my alternative to what I use. So, anywho, Discord. Join us on the Discord. We have different little threads in there that you can talk with us on and join us and, just have a hoot and a half on there. We have, we have different subject matter as far as, like, if you want to talk about, like, certain movies and TV shows that involve the underwater thing, we have a channel for that. Or if you want to suggest some good locations around the world where that you would like to live underwater at, we have a channel for that. If you want to talk about submersibles and boats and all that stuff, anything. So, and if you just want to shoot the breeze, we have a spot for that too. So, come and join the Discord. Once again, that's on the website as well. Also, patreon.com/Atlanta Sea Colony. Special thanks to Brian Acosta, Martin Race, Babe Hyde, yours truly, Adam Jewell, and Daddy Ron Traxler. I'm going to do that every time. If you're going to let me close out the shows, I'm going to do that.
He may be watching for all we know. Actually, it's a little late for him. It's kind of late for him.
Call him up. See if we can get a donation. Call him up right now. Let's do a telethon.
Yeah. But one thing with the Patreon now, it is free too. There is a free tier on there for the.
I was getting to it.
Okay, fine.
God. All right, here's our free ones too. We got Douglas Risley, Adelena F, Hans Cederberg, Rick Segrist, Eric Schilt. Yep, and you can. I told you to take the Break It Up podcast off of there. That was an account I subscribed to just so we could see if it worked.
I know.
Take it off. Or I'm unsubscribing.
Okay.
Anyways, if you want to join the Patreon, we have different tiers for that. There is a free tier.
In the free tier, we have weekly polls and stuff up there now too,
Yeah.
so you can take advantage of those. I know Babe interacts with those, and so just trying to grow that, getting more people just engaged, even for the free tier. So that you feel like you're getting something out of it at least.
Yeah, boy. Other than that, I got nothing else for you handsome fellas. So, I mean, we'll do this again in a month.
Yeah.
Depending on when next month. I don't know if I'll be on it, but...
it's going to be a busy June, so we'll see what happens.
Busy June.
But thank you guys for hopping out here tonight and doing this with me. And
I had a blast.
Everybody that's watching this now, later, or listening to it wherever, thank you very much. Interact.
Hey.
Well, yeah.
Nothing makes me happier than seeing you guys.
So we definitely want to hear what your thoughts are on this as well.
Is it a light of my life?
Mm-hmm. All right.
I'm closing her out. We'll see you guys.
Bye.